Hello and welcome to another political dialogue program. This week we have a special guest from USA, Professor Danny Shaw. Dear Danny, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Erem. An honor to be here to share with you all and with the homeland, with everyone back in Turkey and in Kurdistan.
Thank you so much. So first of all, I would like you to introduce yourself for our audience.
My name is Danny Shaw. I'm from the Bronx, New York. The Bronx is a very oppressed, working class neighborhood. It's a neighborhood under attack right now by Donald Trump and his anti-immigrant, racist, xenophobic policies. I've been a professor at the City University of New York for 2 decades, but last year I was fired because I spoke out about the genocide against the Palestinian people. I'm an anti-imperialist. I speak 5 different languages. I speak the language of Haiti, I speak Spanish, I speak Portuguese, I speak an African language called Cape Verdean. So everywhere I've traveled in the world, I identify with the oppressed, with the underdog, because even in the belly of the beast, even within the United States, so many of us are poor, mistreated. We live in a system of white supremacy, of segregation, of class inequality. So the way my mother raised me was to always identify with the underdog.
Thank you. So I'm really interested in your work, that your research is about how the states putting pressure on the anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist communities and their work as well. So how do you evaluate this? How does the states are stopping the anti-imperialist ideology, what they are trying to do? Very shortly, please.
In the United States, they always talk about democracy, but one of our great leaders who was assassinated by the NYPD and by the FBI in 1965, Malcolm X, said, "I don't see any democracy, all I see is hypocrisy." So the United States bombs Iraq, the United States invaded and bombed Vietnam. They have the Holocaust right now against the Palestinian people, and they always say it's in the name of democracy, but that is utter hypocrisy. Those of us who stand up and tell the truth, we're censored, they kick us off of social media, they fire us, whether we're teachers, journalists, or university professors, and my political enemies try to say that I'm anti-American. I'm not anti-American, I'm anti-imperialist, I'm anti-injustice. But they label us all these things to try to destroy our credibility. But the truth is on the side of the oppressed, as Malcolm X taught us. So it's important for us to continue to speak the truth, because we never want the Kurdish people, the Palestinian people, the Haitian people in the Caribbean. We don't want any oppressed people to feel like they've been abandoned or that they're isolated. And that's the idea of solidarity. Those are the ideas of Ernesto Che Guevara, the Cuban Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. One of my specialties is South America and the Caribbean, but I just finished 1 month in the Middle East, so that's a part of how we found ourselves sitting down today.
Thank you. Also, the capitalist system, how does it affect the Middle East? Because we need to bring our topic to the Middle East. It's still the continuing wars and genocides in the Middle East done by the Western countries with the hands by Israel, and British policies are affecting as well. So the capitalist and imperialist system, how does this system policies affecting the Middle East?
The war on Palestine, the war on Hezbollah, the war on Lebanon, the war on Syria, the war on the Kurds, the war on Iran, it's all about capitalism. It's all about a third world war. It's all about recolonization. It's all about control, economic control, geopolitical control, military control, diplomatic control. We know that the Middle East, or Western Asia, it's one of the richest areas in the world, the gas reserves, the oil reserves. That's why they destroyed Iraq. They've had this ongoing war since 1979 on Iran, since 1948 on the Palestinian people. And that has everything to do with control, with profits. And we always say in the United States, if the Middle East's #1 export was broccoli or spinach or some vegetable, they wouldn't have all these wars. So it's all about profits, but then they go on CNN and they go on Fox News and the New York Times and they talk about democracy and a rules-based order, and that is utter lies utter hypocrisy, and they intimidate us. They don't want us to tell the truth about the Middle East. They want the people in the United States to be completely controlled and to think that the terrorists are in Iraq, the terrorists are in Syria, but the biggest terrorists in the world are in Washington, D.C. The biggest terrorists in the world are on Wall Street, where I live in New York City.
So can we say that the USA and its policy is creating terrorism in the Middle East by the hands of British policies? How do you explain that very shortly?
Yeah, Dr. Martin Luther King, a great peace advocate, also assassinated by the U.S. System in 1968. Martin Luther King said that the United States government is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. But they want to make us think that the United States is the greatest country. People don't go to the United States in pursuit of the American dream voluntarily. It's because their lands have been bombed. I just came from Lebanon, southern Lebanon, the Bekaa Valley. I was on the border of Syria. The United States, using Israel, using Zionism, they bomb wherever they want in Palestine. They bomb wherever they want in Lebanon, Syria. We just saw their bombing of Iran. They see the Middle East as their colonial backyard. And they also see it as a colonial laboratory. They're trying out white phosphorus and other chemical weapons. And then they're very hypocritical to talk about others using chemical weapons when those chemical weapons were made in the United States. The #1 export from the United States is weapons and arms. So every time there's more conflict, they benefit through the sale and profits from arms.
You underlined the Third World War. This is very important, and recolonization, that's a very important word to be underlined, to make it bold for our audience. So during this Third World War, these imperialist and capitalist powers are using the Middle East as their ground for war. So how do you evaluate that, and what is the relation with this way of the imperialist states that they are doing in the Middle East with the Kurdish question? How do you connect it? So we come to our main topic about Kurdish question.
During the 1920s, the British imperial leaders, Winston Churchill and others, said that the sun would never set on the British Empire. Today, we have to ask the same question about the U.S. empire. The United States military has more than 1,000 bases in more than 140 countries in the world. They have tens of thousands of troops in Germany, in Italy, in Japan, in Djibouti, in Korea. We've never seen a global empire of this nature. And we have to oppose that empire. And one of their main tactics is to divide and conquer. And of course, the Kurdish people are stuck in this colonial alignment, and the Kurdish people are striving for their own sovereignty. And we've seen so many attacks on Abdullah Öcalan and the different leaders of the Kurdish people, because the Kurds want peace, the Kurds want sovereignty, and that's what should exist for all of the different diverse people of the region. But the U.S. empire inherited from the British Empire the tactics of divide and conquer. And that's what we see playing out right now in Sueda in southern Syria, dividing the Druze against the Bedouins, against the Alawites, the Sunnis and the Shias. And the colonialists know that they're outnumbered. There's more than 500 million people in what's called the Middle East or Western Asia. And the only way that the imperialists can dominate is by constantly dividing and fracturing and redividing the people so that they don't unite. So they use religion, they use politics, they use language. And the U.S. inherited an anthropological colonial understanding from the British Empire of how to use one proxy force here in Syria, one proxy force here in Iran, and it's always to as a battling ram against the sovereignty of one of the richest areas in the world. So how important that we fight against sectarianism, we fight against those divisions, and because we all believe in peace. Peace is what we want at the end of the day. People don't want to migrate, but people have to migrate to Berlin. People have to migrate to Brussels and New York City because their beautiful lands have been bombed, invaded, and occupied how many times?
And it's done by these powers, basically, and we call this colonization and imperialism. So what we are talking about, the frame to make it more realistic, Syria is an example for everything. So how do you see the conflict in the Syria, and do you think the democratic confederalism idea, this paradigm of Abdullah Öcalan's, would be a good solution for the Syria rather than having the fight and guns and blood?
Abdullah Öcalan is an important philosopher, thinker, writer. He's a political prisoner. He's been in jail now 2.5 decades. We demand his freedom, but he continues to produce theoretically, ideologically. He's a shining sun of this area of the world. And they're afraid of these ideas because they can benefit off of war. Nothing is more profitable to Washington, D.C. and Wall Street than war. They can't make money off of peace. And when we look at all these different conflicts, they try to say that it was a Syrian civil war. It was never a civil war. It was an internationalized proxy war. Where were all those guns coming from? Zionism in the south was trying to take their piece. We see Erdogan's Turkey trying to have a greater Turkey and then the greater Israel. What's going to become of Syria, which was once a very powerful country in the quote-unquote Arab world or Middle East? They are now dividing up Syria because of all of the wealth in Syria. How many Syrians have been forced out of their country? These are innocent people. These are unarmed people. So certainly democratic confederalism, the idea of that all people have a right to exist, to express their own self-determination, religion, politics, economics. That's why Abdullah Öcalan's ideas are so vital to this day.
Just to make it a little more deeper, what do you think about Öcalan and his ideas? Lately, Öcalan make a manifesto for Turkey and for the PKK for disarmament. So how do you evaluate that? How important was that manifesto, democracy and peace call from Öcalan?
I think my knee-jerk instinctual response was, how could you ever trust Erdogan in Turkey, because these are greedy leaders who work with imperialism, the hypocrisy of Erdogan, who says he's against the genocide, against the people of Gaza and the Palestinian people, but then he turns around and has all these commercial deals, same with King Abdullah in Jordan, same with al-Sisi in Egypt. These are dictators. They're taking orders from the United States. So to enter into democratic talks with forces who don't believe in democracy, but you have to believe in the Kurdish people and you have to believe in their leadership. So they're disarming and they're trying a different strategy. Of course, we stand in solidarity. We wish them well, but we know that you can never trust the capitalists or the imperialists who have been the ones thwarting the dream of a united Middle East, of a powerful Middle East. When they can fracture and divide, look what they did to Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was once one powerful, socialist, just fortress. Today, what is Yugoslavia? It's 7 different countries with one of the U.S.'s biggest bases, Camp Bondsteel. So in Kosovo, so we're afraid they're going to do the same thing in the Middle East. They set up military bases wherever they want. So it's very difficult to trust Erdogan, but hopefully this vision of disarmament will bear positive fruit for peace.
So at least we can say at least it's a positive step forward for peace and democracy.
Yes.
Very shortly.
But will it be reciprocated by the imperialist enemy, by the class enemy who tries to flood the region with arms, with divisions? Will the Kurdish people be again swept under the rug and exploited and manipulated and left behind, just like the Sykes-Picot Agreement completely left them behind?
Thank you. So we underlined the Erdogan and its policies. What is your comment on Erdogan's, specifically on the Palestinian policies, Palestine policies? Because Erdogan looks like they supporting the Palestinians' freedom struggle, but on the other hand, we know clearly that the Erdogan is sending metals and guns and everything, donations to Israel, and has a positive relation policies with the Israel. So how do you comment on that very shortly, please? We have little time left.
Erdogan is a hypocrite. We know that the Turkish people and the Saudi people and the Sunni people, the Shia people, the different peoples of the region, stand with the Palestinians, stand against colonialism, stand against genocide, stand against apartheid. Erdogan does this because he speaks with a forked tongue. He says one thing and does another. Same with the king in Jordan. Same with the Saudi, the 20,000, royal princes. They're only thinking of their own individual needs, but they know that their people oppose this. So they say one thing as they act another way. That's called talking left, walking right. That's hypocrisy. We want to expose it. I was just in Amman, Jordan. We tried to have a peaceful rally, the Jordanian and Palestinian people. I was just supporting, participating, and the police came and the police started locking people up. That's the hypocrisy of Erdogan and these other kings. It's not about the kings, it's about the masses from Kurdistan to Palestine and everywhere in between.
Lastly, very shortly, very briefly, what is your support message for the Kurdish freedom struggle, for the Kurds, and for the freedom for Abdullah Öcalan, the Kurdish leader?
Abdullah Öcalan should be free. He's a political prisoner, and it's the greatest tribute to his work that they've had him in jail for almost 3 decades because they're afraid of his words. And they always say the pen is mightier than the sword. They won't even give him a pen. He's isolated on an island. That's how afraid they are of his leadership. So we say free all political prisoners from Zionist dungeons, from Erdogan's dungeons, so that the people of the world can have their leaders and can continue to fight for peace.
Dear Professor Danish Show, thanks for joining us. Thank you for your valuable comments. It's been an honor to host you.
The honor is all mine. Hopefully I didn't speak too quickly for the translators.
Thank you so much. We came to another political dialogue program, and we had a very important guest. Professor Danish Show has been with us, and we talk about the conflict in the Middle East. We will see you on the next political dialogue program.